Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today we are going to be checking out an add-on that changes the photogrammetry or the satellite imagery from using Bing to using Google. In X-Plane 11 we saw some major differences between the two, and today we're going to see which one is better for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So make sure you guys stick around, and as always there will be chapters down in the description below if you want to skip ahead. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay, so first off, what is the advantage here? So Bing Maps is what we have by default in Microsoft Flight Simulator that provides all of our satellite photogrammetry. Now, as you guys all know, Bing Maps has a lot of weird texture breaks, some washed out textures, not always the highest of resolution and detail. You'll see texture squares with different coloring. We'll see some of that when we get up in the air here in just a second here. And there are many parts of the world that Bing Maps doesn't cover. And then in those situations, what you get is auto-generated textures, basically buildings, houses, trees, roads, etc., that probably aren't really there. And so it really makes it kind of a drag. Google Maps, you tend to get higher resolution. They are literally worldwide generated, so everything anywhere in the world should be there when it comes to Google. So we're going to go up, we're going to do a comparison first. We're going to fly over a couple of areas that I know tend to have some washed out textures. All of my aftermarket scenery has been removed. Everything right now is default scenery. That way there isn't any stack. Now, it is also important to remember that if we make the switch to Google, any updated landmarks that have been updated in any of the world updates from Asobo, those still stand. Okay, it's just the surrounding areas, the landmarks, if you will, or the terrain textures that are altered. So let's go ahead and just get airborne. Oh, that was weird. Left rudder. There's 120 coming back. Come on, baby. Come up. Come up. Come up. Gears in transition. Flaps coming up. Throttle coming back a little bit. And let's start trimming. All right, let's bring her around. All right, so we're just going to do some general sightseeing, if you will. We're going to pay attention to the road, the textures, looking for any washed out sections, any detail that might be missing, or just looking overall crappy, if you catch my drift. But now, one of the biggest things that I had mentioned earlier is the break in color on the textures. Look at this right here. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, would you settle down? Get your nose down. You behave yourself right now. I swear I'll send you to your room. So you can see this right here. Okay, this is horrible. I hate that so much. And that is very common of Bing. I remember even back in the days of X-Plane 11 when I was flying it really religiously, and we were doing that. You could add in the aftermarket satellite imagery, right? For those of you who know what I'm talking about, it was a real pain in the butt to do. And that was one of the things that we battled with was, did you go Google or did you go Bing, right? With Bing, you typically get clearer pictures. You wouldn't have to worry about things like shadows being casted by clouds and things like that, where in the Google imagery oftentimes we would. So what I want to do here is we're just going to come southwest here a bit of Tucson. And again, I'm just sort of looking around at everything. And by the way, there are timestamps down in the description, guys. If you guys are interested in skipping ahead, by all means, no hard feelings. Okay, so down there should be Ryan Field. And then here we got the interstate. And the interstates, I've noticed, almost always lack a ton of detail. They just look really, I don't know, odd. Alright, so now we're out here by Tombstone, Arizona. This is another area that is typically significantly neglected. So we're going to come up north just a little bit here. And there's Tombstone itself. So again, we're looking at the roads, buildings, colors. Okay, so our last step will be to bring it back to Tucson, take a look around the airport, and then rinse and repeat for the final portion. Alright, so once you have it downloaded, and a link to the download will be down in the description below as always, we're going to want to go down and find it. Assuming I can remember what it's called. It was right in front of me not 2 seconds ago. I know I saw it. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where are you? There it is right there. Goodness gracious. All right, so we're going to come through here, and you want to make sure that you run this as an administrator. That is required because the permission's necessary. First, the command prompt will come up, and then you get this screen here. This is the important one. Now, for the most part, it's very simple to do here. The proxy is only required if you live in China or somewhere where Google Maps is restricted. Okay, so in this case, we live in the US, so we don't have to worry about that. We're going to take that out. Okay, that's all we have to do. Do a test connection. Proxy is good, response time. Okay, map server, we can leave that as is. It's got a couple, but we're just going to leave it as the base. Now, it is recommended that technically you should be deleting your cache if you guys do cache your scenery. But given the way that it works inherently, it shouldn't actually be an issue because it's always live streamed. So I'm not too concerned with that. So we're just going to run it as is. Now, both of these windows must be active at all times in order for this to work. So I'm just going to move this off screen. I'm going to select run. Okay, now I do get this guy here. This is development server. Do not use it in production development, blah, blah, blah. That's totally fine. Don't worry about the red warning. Now, if you have your Windows Firewall enabled, I use something completely different for my security, but you will get some Windows Firewall prompts, very likely. You do need to allow access if you want these to work. If you don't allow access, then you might as well remove it. Okay, and there's also a donate button here if you guys find that you really enjoy the work. So, at this point, that's all there is to it. Now we're going to launch the simulator once again. Okay, so we're back up in Tucson. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it got rid of those squares that I hate so much. I really don't think those are there. The airport looks about the same as it did. Not noticing a huge difference there. I did go ahead and delete my rolling cache and turned it off. Now, some of the colors do look a bit different. The roads do look a bit more defined. The images look a bit sharper. The textures don't look as washed out. I'll give them that. There's definitely a noticeable difference there. There seems to be more detail in the images themselves. Let's check out a couple of the other areas that we were flying around, although that looks pretty good. Yeah, there's definitely a difference in the color. Let's go check out a couple of the other areas. Okay, so I headed out to Ryan Field initially, just like we did previously, and I didn't notice much of a difference. I really didn't. So I decided to scrap Ryan Field from it, and I was just starting to get a little, like, well, maybe there's not much of a difference going on here, until I came out to Tombstone. In Tombstone, there is a huge difference. A huge difference in the color, a huge difference in the detail. I mean, just absolutely everything. There's a massive difference. The roads look better. Before it looked like almost every road was a dirt road, and that's just not the case out here. Let me try to get my head tracker in a position where you guys can see. But there's a massive difference here. That dirt road in the center, that's actually Tombstone itself. That's Main Street. You would expect that. That's where all the theatrics happen and things like that. So that's to be expected. But this looks significantly better. Absolutely significantly better. This is a much better representation of what I expect to see. Actually, one of those houses right there, can't really get my finger up, but Wyatt Earp's house is over there. At least where the location of where it was, I should say. But there's a big difference out here. Definitely a huge difference out here. There's actually one more place I want to try. I kind of want to go out to the Caribbean. So let's go ahead and take our jet out to the Caribbean. But this is a huge difference. The coloring, like I said, so much better. Resolution, so much better. The detail, so much better. You know, there's more out here than what we were seeing previously. So that's really nice to see. So let's step on out. Let's jump across the ocean here, and or let's jump across the entire continent in my case, and see what's out there in the Caribbean with this. All right, so now we are back out in the Caribbean. We're at St. Bart's. Let me make sure my controls profile is set correctly, because I don't think it is. I think we're actually set up for... Well, actually, I guess the jet aircraft should work fine. We might be okay. Something's wrong here. What am I missing here? This was a hot start, so... What do you mean it's not loaded? Goodness gracious, I just did it. Hang on. It's telling me Airland FS isn't loaded, and I'm sitting here watching it running. So let's try this again. Maybe because I loaded it before I actually got into the plane. Yep, there it goes. Alright, let's get airborne. Okay. So, call me crazy, but I don't remember this wall being here. I don't think any of the physical airport textures are generated by this, though, so I don't think that's any kind of relation there, but... So as you guys know, I fly out in the Caribbean a lot. I really do. I want to check something because I feel like there's a graphics settings that's missing. Everything does look a little dull today. Oh, bloom. Why did that get turned off? That shouldn't have been turned off. Okay, see, so like out there, again, big differences. Much more detail in the rock face. The coloring is significantly better, brighter, richer. I really don't remember that wall being right there, but I'm sure it was. Now, what I don't like is the textures out here in the water. That, now, well, let's give it a second, because you can see they're generating. Maybe not. It's got more out here. I mean, if you guys can see it there. All these boats and things like that, that's Google talking. Again, I don't have anything installed for this. I don't have, you know, the aftermarket, you know, boats and things like that that you can get. There is an add-on that does that. But I don't have any of that installed. I removed all of my scenery enhancement objects. So all the boats and things like that should be Google talking and not me. Like especially those ones down there. Like you can see those are 2D and flattened. As far as these guys out here, I don't remember them being there. So unless that's a new development that I'm unaware of, that definitely looks brand new. You know, I might have to put my foot in my mouth on the boats. I'll have to go back and look later, but I actually think I do have it running. I think I have it in a different folder. So drawbacks here, like I said, I don't like the water. That water is a 2D image. It is taken from the satellite imagery and been laid down on top of the water that we have existing. The water is actually one of the things that Microsoft Flight Simulator does very, very well. I think it's absolutely beautiful the way they do it. So, obviously, major drawback when we're talking about switching to Google. At the same token, looking at the mountains here, okay, and the coloring of the trees and the rocks and the detail on the face there, that looks much better in my opinion. But for this particular scenario, I would absolutely not sacrifice the water imagery for what I'm gaining from Google. Having the water be messed up like that is a game breaker for me, or a deal breaker, if you guys catch my gist. I would not sacrifice the water for that. So, I'm kind of glad I did that. I'm kind of glad that I decided to bring us out here, because that's a big one for me. It should be a big one for anyone. I mean, if you're flying to an island, the water should probably be a pretty big detail that can't be overlooked. So that's a bumming out point. At the same token, let's come back down here. Yeah, no, it looks like it's the same on all the coastline. So what's interesting though is like you got right in here, that looks pretty good, but then right when you get up here, it's terrible. So it's a matter of the coastline being able, or being properly defined, and allowing Microsoft's water to display properly. But that's a drag. So my alright, I gotta be careful with this next part. So my general consensus, my final opinion on this is an amazing app, and it's got a lot of potential. It's got a ton of potential. I would say one of the things, obviously, clear, goes without saying, is the water has to be addressed in order for me to give it my full vote personally. However, it is just like anything else. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, right? So if you are flying today, you know that you're going to be flying towards water, don't use it, right? You know, but if you're going to be flying to somewhere that's very remote, where and Bing Maps doesn't do a good job of generating the scenery, turn it on. You know, so it's definitely going to be one of those things that I don't think I'm going to use all the time, but I'm definitely going to keep it in the arsenal, and I'm definitely going to be watching the updates very, very closely. This is a very awesome add-on. It's a very awesome addition. I do absolutely agree that overall Google Maps does a much better job with its imagery, has a much larger database. It's a better service all around, in my personal opinion. You know, one of my major complaints when I first heard about Microsoft Flight Simulator and its photogrammetry and satellite imagery was the fact that they were using Bing, because I remembered our experiences from using Bing with X-Plane 11 and some of the issues that we had back then. So it really does make perfect sense, you know, to have Google as an option. It would just be nice to see some of these other items cleaned up, and I think I would make, if the water wasn't an issue, I'd be making the switch right now. It'd be a full-time, hardcore, no ands, if, or buts about it. It'd be a switch. But I mean, even all these cars and things like that, like you can see it's sort of jumbled up right there, but I really don't think that might be Google talking. It really might be. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the description below. Let me know some places that you have flown that you really enjoyed having the Google Maps add-on. And that way I can check them out myself and keep sharing the information. As always, guys, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does make a difference for us YouTubers. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.